Good morning and welcome to StartupHakk. Today I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at StartupHakk we love to train software developers and build custom software solutions. I do a lot of work as a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology teams and products. Today we're diving into a rather sobering yet oddly fascinating topic, the recent tsunami of tech layoffs. Why is everybody in Silicon Valley and across the US updating their LinkedIn status to open to work? So let's dig into the real reasons, sprinkled in with a little bit of my thoughts on the matter, and then here are some of the reasons that we'll dive in. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I've been a part of the tech world for 25 years. To put that into perspective, I started in 1999, so I caught the run up to the dot-com bubble. When I originally started, I remember building out some of my very first ASP pages, classic ASP using VB script. I actually wrote my very first web application using the database as a Microsoft Access database, if that's dating me here. And hopefully there's somebody out there who even knows what Access is anymore. So I started around 1999, started building out technology in a time when if you could get things to work, you were hired. And that's actually really how I started. I started with the local electric company. I had written a lot of VB as a kid. My oldest brother worked for Microsoft, and so he had brought home VB. And so at the time, VB6 was the big shebang. And I'd been working on the phones in a call center, and the technical support group found out that they had a developer who knew VB6 on the phones. I can't remember how it came across. I mentioned it to somebody, and somebody mentioned it to somebody. Anyways, they pulled me into the group, and I started writing code for them. Originally, I didn't even get my job title changed, but I was just happy to be off the phones. So that was kind of where I started. It was in 1999, just writing code, just because it was an excuse to get off the phones. And so I caught the dot-com bubble as it was kind of running up. And here in Phoenix, we didn't see the dot-com as hard as obviously somewhere like Silicon Valley. But, so I saw the dot-com bubble, saw the burst, really was into my career in 2008 when I saw the market go. The company that I was building for was just bleeding with the market crash in 2008, 2009. And in 2009, I got laid off as one of a couple times that I've been laid off in my career. But every time was able to find a job very quickly. And partly because I think in those scenarios, we didn't see tech get hit as hard. Obviously, in the dot-com bubble, we did to some degree. I was sheltered by that, I think, in some of the corporate tech worlds. But, and then over the last, little while, as we've seen COVID, and then the run-up in COVID, and we're going to talk about some of that today. So it's just been an interesting time to be into tech. And we're going to dive into kind of why we are where we are. So the very first thing I'm going to talk about is what I call the hire now, think later. And so remember those golden days when tech companies were handing out jobs like candy on Halloween, i.e. during the pandemic? Well, they may have overdone it a bit, and I think that's an understatement. Fueled by an overabundance of optimism and cash, companies hired aggressively, expecting endless growth. Now with the sugar rush gone, reality is hit, and companies are left trimming the fat to get back into a sustainable workforce. So, the economy decided to kind of play a little bit of a Jenga, right? So economic stability, inflation, rising interest rates, global uncertainties, and it's turned the financial world into a game of Jenga. And guess what? Some companies have pulled out just a few too many blocks. So to avoid a complete collapse, layoffs have become the emergency measure to keep the tower from toppling entirely. Now, as the tech landscape shifts, so do business priorities. What was once the hot new project now sits in the corner gathering dust. Companies are pivoting faster than a startup at a pitch meeting, focusing on profitability over wild expansion. Consequently, those projects and their teams that were once crucial are now seen as expendable. Now, before I get into some other parts of this, I kind of want to talk a little more on some of these pieces. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, money is expensive right now. And with interest rates where they're at, and a lot of fear, with Silicon Valley, hitting its tough times, and being able to recover, but it still has people skeptical and shaky, right? And when interest rates are this high, money is expensive, and R&D is expensive. Like that's the thing is that at the end of the day, development on new projects costs a lot. developers are not widget makers in the end. There's innovation. Um, so I think what we're seeing, my opinion, is what we're seeing from the AI boom that we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months is the effect of a lot of it's years and years and years of machine learning, large data, and in my opinion, AI is really a lot of machine learning and big data that we've had now for the better part of 10 to 15 years, and we're seeing the signs of it. But then we saw this massive rush on it during COVID when money was free. And so let's just be really honest. During COVID, with government grants, the ERC grants, the PVP loans, with interest rates literally a negative at one point, money was just free. And so if you're a Microsoft, an Amazon, an NVIDIA, or whomever these are, all the big name companies, it was a land rush. They tried to grab as much of this technology as quick as they could. And we're seeing the benefits of it now. So the AI boom is really, in my opinion, a huge result of this free money that came into the market. Now, what happened is they staffed up, and I believe they knew it. I believe that they knew full well that there was going to be a tail end of this. And what we're seeing now is a terrible game of Survivor, right? Where they dropped everybody on an island. They brought way too more people than they knew they had actual food for. And these companies knew this. This isn't a surprise. But what they were able to do is with this free money, they were able to staff up, build up big projects, and now both people and projects are going to get voted off the island. Money has gotten expensive with interest rates where they're at, and more importantly, interest rates where they're at for as long as they've been. This is some of the longer time that we've seen high interest rates this high for a long time, and definitely the longest that we've seen inflation stay this high in a long time. And so back before my time in tech. So this is the longest that we've seen inflation run so high. So companies are skittish and they're scared. And so while our hiring on every other area is really good, in the tech industry, it's been bad because of this. So the other part about this too is there's robots and automation. So tech companies are getting really good at automating things, like really, really good. Plus, so many jobs are now being done by lines of code rather than lines of people. Automation boosts efficiencies and cuts costs. It also means fewer humans are needed, hence the layoffs. The machines aren't taking over, but they're certainly minimizing some of the jobs. And I've talked on this channel before that I don't believe AI will take developers' jobs, but developers who know how to use AI will. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're just actually seeing developers become more efficient. But I also think because of this expensive money that I was just talking about, the tolerance for a poor performing developer is less than what it was just a few years ago. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, the investors want their pound of flesh. The investors are like overly concerned parents at a school play, demanding nothing short of perfection. When profits dip and stock prices wobble, they push for drastic measures. Layoffs become the go-to solution to make the balance sheet look pretty again, even if it means letting go of talented folks. Now, even in the beginning of my career, 25 years ago, companies were terrified of the term layoff because they would think it would make their stock prices go down. And this is a huge shift we've seen over the last 25 years. Originally, the concept that they would do layoffs would mean that the company was in trouble. And so, it was just kind of a dirty word. You didn't do layoffs because that showed bad sign of the company. Well, so when I was raising money for Clean Router, 2018 through 2017 through 2019, when I was trying to raise money for Clean Router, which, by the way, we never did take any money. When I was trying to raise that money, most investors that I spoke with said that if you want to do kind of a back of the napkin to see if your company is a good company, take your number of employees, take your gross revenue, and divide the two. And if you're around $100,000 to $150,000 of gross revenue per employee, on the back of a napkin, they could tell whether you were a profitable company. And so just recently, I was talking with two different VCs, and they both agreed that that number of 100 to 150 has to be over 300 now in order for them to even begin to take a look at you. So this drive for efficiency maybe arguably should have been driven from tech from the beginning, and the 100 to 150 per employee that was acceptable, in the late 2015 to 2020, and is not good enough after 2020 anymore. post-pandemic, if you're not able to push efficiencies into the 250,000 per employee, that's something investors aren't willing to touch you for. Now, I'm not saying every company should get investors, quite the opposite. But just as a metric, this is just metrics. And so as we've started to talk about, some of these, I think one of the other effects that we're seeing is where people down in the trenches know that AI aren't going to replace jobs. I believe there's too many executives out there that think still that AI can replace jobs. I know that they are seeing this in content writing and some of the other places, but ultimately in tech, I think we will see an efficiency gain out of AI, but I think there's an underlying belief that AI can replace more jobs than it's currently ready to. Now, we can talk all about the future of AI. That's a whole different podcast here. But today what I'm really talking about is kind of the reasons for these tech layoffs. And I think there's just kind of a smell to it as well. I think that AI and all this talk about not needing developers and comments by the CEO of NVIDIA that developers aren't going to be needed. Now, I've obviously on this channel talked lots about how developers are still going to be needed, and Sam Altman being one of the first ones to say, no, we still need good developers. Ultimately, as we see that, I think there's a smell that's coming out into the executive and into the boardrooms to say that technology is not needed. Now, I think there's those out there who absolutely know. I'm talking to them every day. I was sitting at a table yesterday with people who are being funded by a PE group that are wanting to use StartupHakk for consulting services to help to build a platform to grow their software position. And so, no, there's absolutely still a lot of people out there who know, but I think there's a smell that's coming out that people are thinking, oh, we don't need developers, or we don't need those expensive developers anymore because a junior developer can do more. Now, I do believe that junior developers can do more than they probably could have 10 years ago. There's much better tools in place. I know when we started Clean Router in 2010, the first problem that we tried to solve was how in the world are we going to get servers? And so at one point, I think we had almost 10 servers stacked up in my laundry room with 2 different ISPs to host in case one went down and all of this. And how to stand up servers was like a critical thing in 2010. Now fast forward to 2024, and I just stood up a server last night. We messed it up. We deleted it and we rebuilt it, right? And I'm talking about all in 5 minutes. So at standing up server, we're literally at a point of almost infinite computation. And so I think some of those things are adding up for people to really I think all of this is playing into the factor of what's bringing tech layoffs. Now, I still believe that there is a strong tech market out there, and I still believe that the really good will survive. When I've been laid off 3 times, I think, technically in my career. One of them was a little odd, but technically been laid off 3 times in my career. I've never been out of work for more than 7 days. This is the first market where if I were to go out and look for a full-time job, currently I'm all in on this consulting business as well as the coding boot camp. But I think if this were a market where I were going out to try to find work, I would be worried that it might take me a couple of months to find a job. And that sounds weird, right? Like I've never seen a market like that in the 25 years that I've been into tech. So my advice for those who are out there working is to keep going. Don't give up. If you're one of the ones who has put, open for work on your LinkedIn status, keep grinding. Connect to everybody you know. I would say over half the jobs I've gotten from people I know, not necessarily just by blind applications. In fact, I would say probably only a third of the jobs that I've had, and I've had a lot of jobs. One of my brother-in-laws teased me that I changed jobs more than he changes his socks. Now, it's not obviously that bad, but you can check out my resume by going to startuphakk.com/Spencer. That's my fractional CTO. You can see my resume out there. So definitely I've worked for a lot of different companies across a lot of different industries, but have had a very stable career. But my point in saying that is that I have changed jobs more than somebody. My father-in-law worked for a Baby Bell and worked for him for over 45 years. And so to him, the thought of how many times I've changed jobs just seems crazy. But in tech, the joke, if you want to raise, you got to quit. Now, I don't think in this market there's a whole bunch of people quitting, but it was just a couple of years ago that we saw the whole quietly quitting movement, right? We saw this disgruntled season of workers who were quietly quitting so that they could try to get raises. And that was during the pandemic, and I believe this was the staff off to vote off the island that we're seeing now. So as with everything, I think there is choices and consequences in our economy that staffed up and ballooned developer developer and technology wages so much during the pandemic when you literally couldn't hire a developer even if you threw any amount of money at them. You're going to see this downswing of that. So we always have. I believe that we're starting to see some of I think we're near the bottom of it, if not at the bottom. And I think we're going to start seeing some upswing. I think just as I've talked with people, a lot of people are saying money's been parked by these PEs, these private equity firms, for a long time, and they're starting to really itch. And they've been waiting and holding off. And so as a consultant, I'm starting to see that. And usually you see consultants come back before a full time. But so my advice to you is keep going, talk to everybody you know, network hard, network among people you know, reach back out to previous developers you've worked with, previous managers, follow them, and just keep grinding. Keep your chin up. I also tell people that if you're not doing consulting work and you're struggling to land a job, dig into some consulting work. It'll keep your skills sharp as well as help in the economy. And I believe a high tide raises all boats. So I've kind of yammered for a lot of time about this. This has been definitely a different one. I don't usually just kind of talk this unscripted for this long, but obviously I have a lot to say about this. I've been in the industry for a long time. I have a lot of scars to show from it. One on my face. No, that's not from the industry. But and so the biggest thing I can say is I do think tech is still here to stay. I don't think it's going away. I don't think we're seeing this as the beginning of the end of the tech. I do think we are seeing some righting of the ship a little bit. I think we saw them balloon too fast, and with any kind of market, when there's a bubble, it's going to burst. And I think we saw a little bit of a tech bubble during COVID, and we're seeing that burst a little bit, and that's going to be painful. And it is. And to those who are out there struggling to find jobs, keep your chin up, keep grinding, don't give up. It is hard. First of all, lean into the hard that it's going to be hard, but keep going. And just keep building. I promise that if you can keep grinding, keep going. I love the tech industry. It's always been good to me. It's still continuing to be good. I do believe there's a lot of great work, and I believe there's a huge future in it, even for the next 25 years to come, despite what the CEO of NVIDIA says. So those are my two thoughts. Two thoughts. 2 cents. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I love having great discussions. My best compliment is when people leave comments. I love getting comments. So drop a comment, even if it's just say, hi, Spencer. I love getting good comments down there just to know that people are watching this. I mean, I see on the statistics that people are watching this, but I love when people give comments because I love to see real people. So I love having the discussion. I also love to build technology. Love training software developers. We take people who have zero experience and we can get them to an intern level in 3 months. That's our claim to fame, and I stick to it. We've trained a lot of people, and we're going to continue to train more. And then we take those people, and a lot of them we put to work in our consulting business. So we love to build awesome software for great technology companies, people who need technology. So as always, make sure you like and subscribe, leave a comment. You can go to check out StartupHakk.com for our coding bootcamp or StartupHakk.com/Spencer for our consulting agency, and we will catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.